My name is Emily, age 44, and I'm employed as a TV broadcaster. Alongside me is my husband Tom, also 44, who manages a photography studio. Our journey began in high school, where we became each other's first and only significant other. The path to marriage was natural, as if destiny had woven our lives together seamlessly. At 25, tragedy struck when I lost my parents in an accident. In the aftermath, Tom's unwavering support was a lifeline, solidifying his place as not just a husband but a familial anchor. Post-nuptials, Tom relocated to my childhood home, a sanctuary left behind by my parents, where I found solace in our shared space. Our union bore fruit with the arrival of our son, bringing immense joy into our lives. Tom proved to be the epitome of an egalitarian partner, seamlessly balancing household responsibilities and childcare, a testament to his commitment to our shared goals. Yet, amidst our bliss, a shadow loomed in the form of my mother-in-law Jen. She couldn't reconcile with the sight of Tom, a man, taking charge of domestic duties. Reflecting on an incident a decade past, when our son was just beginning elementary school, Jen's presence escalated. With the transition from nursery to elementary school came logistical challenges, prompting us to rely on her assistance in ferrying our son home. Her frequent visits coincided with her husband Steve's retirement, affording them both ample free time. Jen, a staunch traditionalist, had embraced the role of homemaker while Steve was less inclined towards household chores. Whenever Tom found himself in the kitchen, effortlessly whipping up meals, Jen's disapproval lingered audibly in muttered phrases like, "A man's place isn't in the kitchen," or nostalgic remarks about how their generation wouldn't conceive of such occurrences. Upon my initial visit to their home, Jen wasted no time in expressing her expectation for me to relinquish my career aspirations, firmly rooted in her belief that women should prioritize homemaking. My role as a glamorous broadcaster seemed to irk her, contrasting sharply with her worldview. Yet Tom, who had witnessed my passion for broadcasting since our high school days, remained steadfast in his support for my ambitions. Likewise, I championed his pursuit of photography, and our symbiotic collaboration felt organic and effortless. Navigating the challenges of nursery school proved to be a joint effort, but the transition to elementary school brought unexpected hurdles, particularly with after-school care proving less accommodating. This compelled us to lean on Jen's assistance more heavily. As she began to frequent our home, her critiques of household tasks became a common refrain. Despite Tom's nonchalant responses defending our division of labor, Jen persisted in voicing her disapproval, often behind my back. Yet, recognizing her invaluable help, I chose to endure her comments in silence, opting not to engage in confrontation. Despite her traditional values, Jen had a surprising affinity for modern conveniences. Proudly brandishing her smartphone, she boasted of being the sole owner among her peers, reveling in the ease of access it provided. "I'm ahead of the curve," she proclaimed, enthusiastically exploring the internet for various purposes. "Look at how simple it is to do things now," she remarked, advocating for the adoption of convenient tools. Embracing the digital age, she efficiently utilized online platforms for tasks like restaurant reservations and service bookings. However, Jen's embrace of modernity seemed selective when it came to our family's shopping habits. Disapproving of our reliance on a delivery service for weekly grocery orders, she voiced her dissent with comments like, "You should handle the shopping yourself," and lamented the perceived wastefulness of delivery fees. Yet, her tune changed upon discovering the option to order groceries online. Encouraging me to embrace this newfound convenience, she eagerly advocated for the abandonment of outdated paper forms, highlighting the benefits of digital shopping. During evenings when Jen lingered at our home while Tom and I prepared dinner, she often cited the need to return for Steve's meal, emphasizing his inability to dine alone. Steve's aversion to household tasks was evident, leaving Jen to shoulder the domestic burden. Curious about Tom's contrasting approach, I once questioned him about his cooperative attitude towards chores, given his upbringing. Tom's response shed light on his determination to avoid the same complaints his mother had voiced about his father's lack of involvement. It was a lesson learned through observation of negative patterns. Jen's frustration with her husband's reluctance to contribute to household chores was palpable, contrasting with her bemusement at her son's willingness to pitch in. Perplexed by her seemingly contradictory stance, I suspected that Jen found solace in airing grievances, prompting me to maintain a cautious distance. Little did I know at the time, Jen's mounting frustrations would eventually lead her to take drastic actions, such as selling our house without consent, revealing the depths of her desperation. That summer brought an exciting opportunity when my company extended an invitation for a 2-month business trip abroad to cover a sports broadcast at the World Championship. It was a rare chance that felt like the culmination of my hard work and dedication. Recognizing the significance of this opportunity, I turned to Tom for guidance. Amidst his own commitments, he expressed uncertainty about managing both work and caring for our son John. It was then that Jen, who had been quietly listening, stepped in with an offer to assist. Despite lingering reservations from past encounters, the absence of alternative options left me with little choice but to entrust John's care to Jen. While considering the option of having Tom and John stay with Tom's parents, we realized the logistical challenges of commuting to school from their location. Ultimately, we settled on the arrangement of Jen staying at our home during weekdays to provide care for John. With this plan in motion, I embarked on my business trip, fully immersing myself in the sportscasting work and achieving significant strides in my career. Exhausted and relieved to be back in the U.S., I trudged towards my home on a weekday afternoon, burdened by the weight of my suitcase. As I approached the entrance, I was met by Jen, who seemed oddly eager. Prepared to express my gratitude for her assistance during my absence, I was blindsided by her unexpected declaration. "This house sold for $300,000, so I'm taking the full amount." Stunned, I struggled to process her words. "Our house?" I questioned incredulously, hoping for some clarification. With a gleam in her eyes, Jen affirmed, "Yes, this house. Well, actually, we don't technically own it." Her sudden backtrack only added to my confusion, prompting me to question the authenticity of her claim. However, Jen dismissed my doubts with laughter, insisting on the validity of her statement and brandishing the registration certificate as evidence. As she stood there, arms crossed and seemingly victorious, I realized that reasoning with her would be futile. Deciding to change tactics, I attempted to redirect the conversation. "Let's set that aside for a moment. Why are you selling it?" I inquired, hoping for some semblance of explanation. With a nonchalant air, Jen declared, "What belongs to the wife belongs to the husband, and therefore to me. I'm using it to build a new house." Her rationale, though flawed, hinted at a deeper agenda, leaving me grappling with a sense of disbelief and betrayal. As Jen's words echoed in the air, her bloodshot eyes filled me with a creeping sense of unease. The notion of a new house, one that belonged to both my husband and me, suddenly seemed tainted with a sinister undertone. Her resolve was palpable as she outlined her intentions, driven by a misguided sense of obligation to shield Tom from household chores. "I've raised him not to engage in such tasks, and I won't allow him to do so in the future," she declared with unwavering conviction. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, it became clear that Jen's perception of Tom's role in our household had been distorted from the beginning. A simple act of solidarity, when Tom had insisted on sharing household responsibilities shortly after our marriage, had been misconstrued by Jen. In her eyes, Tom's willingness to contribute was a mere reflection of his residence in my house, rather than a genuine commitment to shared responsibilities. The concept of a working couple collaborating on household duties simply did not register in her worldview. Delving deeper into the situation, I discovered the underlying financial strain plaguing Jen and Steve following Steve's retirement. With his pension falling short, expectations and job opportunities scarce, they found themselves grappling with the daunting prospect of maintaining their rented apartment. It was this sense of desperation that drove them to resort to such unthinkable measures. "No, this house isn't mine, and Tom thinks it's normal to do housework," I asserted, attempting to counter Jen's accusations. Yet, before I could elaborate further, Jen dismissed my words as lies, adamantly refusing to entertain any alternative interpretation. Desperate for clarity amidst the chaos, I redirected the conversation towards practical details. "Where did you sell it?" I inquired, hoping to gain insight into the situation. Jen confirmed my suspicions, revealing that she had engaged an online evaluation real estate agent, AA Real Estate, to facilitate the sale. With minimal effort, the necessary documents were submitted, and the transaction proceeded seamlessly. "It's a convenient world, isn't it?" she remarked with a hint of satisfaction. As the details emerged, it became apparent that Jen had acted impulsively, swayed by the assurances of the real estate agent. The allure of a lucrative offer, coupled with the buyer's eagerness for a property in our area, had seemingly convinced her of the transaction's merits, selling a 20-year-old house for $300,000. "I found a good real estate, didn't I?" she boasted proudly, oblivious to the turmoil her actions had caused. As I delved into my investigation, I came across a website for the real estate company that appeared legitimate. Attempting to confirm the validity of the sale, I dialed their number, only to be met with silence on the other end. Seeking clarification from Jen regarding her involvement, I demanded to know if she had physically visited the real estate company's address. Her response was dismissive, claiming that such visits were unnecessary in today's digital age. Determined to uncover the truth, I issued a firm ultimatum: visit the address in person the following day, or our discussion would cease. To my astonishment, Jen's tearful call the next day confirmed my worst fears. The purported real estate company was nowhere to be found. In its place stood a derelict wooden structure devoid of life. Despite the gravity of the situation, I couldn't help but burst into laughter at Jen's folly. Upon her return, Jen confessed to her misguided actions. Fueled by a misplaced sense of opportunity upon discovering the house registration certificate in my name during my absence, she had enlisted the services of the real estate agent. Their shameless assurances, coupled with Jen's naivety, led her to believe that the sale was legitimate, even without actual ownership. In her eagerness to seize what she perceived as an opportunity, she had unwittingly fallen prey to deception, providing the agent with all the requested documents without hesitation. Upon discovering a potential buyer, the fraudulent real estate agents demanded a deposit, half of their commission fee, amounting to $4,800, equivalent to half of the $9,600 commission promised for the $300,000 sale. Concerned of the gravity of the situation, I promptly contacted the authorities to report the scam. 2 officers were dispatched to our home to investigate the matter further. To our dismay, the police officers revealed that such internet fraud, masquerading as legitimate real estate agents, had become increasingly prevalent. Their modus operandi involved offering free property valuations, soliciting official documents from unsuspecting victims, introducing a fictitious buyer, and then absconding with a hefty fee. It was a cunning scheme that preyed on the vulnerabilities of individuals seeking to sell their properties. With the proliferation of vacant houses and the ease of fabricating addresses for document delivery, such fraudulent activities had surged in recent times. The officers theorized that the fraudsters likely designated a postbox under a fictitious name to receive the documents. Trembling with apprehension, Jen cooperated with the police, providing them with vital information. However, their inquiry took a startling turn when the officer questioned Jen about the house deed. In a barely audible voice, she admitted, "No, it was the original." The revelation left the officer visibly astounded, underscoring the severity of the situation and the extent of Jen's unwitting participation in the scam. As the police officer turned to me for clarification, I calmly denied any involvement in requesting the deposit. "No, I didn't ask for that," I stated plainly. Despite Jen's visibly distressed state, the officer seemed to lean towards trusting my account over hers. "She says she didn't ask for it. Selling things on your own isn't advisable, madame." "This situation is outrageous," he admonished, casting a disapproving glance at Jen, who remained silent, her lip bitten in remorse. Turning his attention back to Jen, the officer probed further about the deed registration. "You sent a copy, right?" Her barely audible response, "No, it was the original," left the officer even more incredulous. His dismay evident, he exchanged a glance with me, silently acknowledging the gravity of the situation. Sensing the need for resolution, the officer inquired about filing a theft report. However, I declined, explaining that the document had no validity in the sale process. "Actually, this house has already been sold to someone else," I revealed, elaborating on the legal changes that rendered the deed registration obsolete in such transactions. While I cherished the deed as a memento of my parents' legacy, its practical significance had diminished over time. With this revelation, the reality of the situation began to sink in, leaving Jen with a heavy sense of regret. As the reality of the situation began to dawn on Jen, she realized her misunderstanding regarding the deed and its implications. In her mind, the presence of the deed signified ongoing ownership of the house. Unaware that its significance had diminished in the sale process orchestrated by the fraudsters, faced with embarrassment and frustration, she turned her gaze towards me with a hint of resentment, questioning why I hadn't sold the house myself. Her muttered words stung, insinuating that my career choices had led to our current predicament. Meeting her gaze with a calm resolve, I explained the true reason behind the sale: Tom's ambition to pursue his dream photography business. With insufficient funds to kickstart his venture, we had made the difficult decision to part with our cherished family home, selling it to an acquaintance and subsequently renting it back. As I recounted the series of events, Jen's demeanor shifted, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Her tearful outburst laid bare the deeper frustrations plaguing her own life, revealing the stark contrast between her own marital struggles and our united front. As she lamented her husband's perceived shortcomings, her grievances poured forth unabated, leaving the police officer at a loss for words as he struggled to navigate the emotional turmoil unfolding before him. Despite filing a fraud report, the perpetrators remained elusive, evading capture for over a decade, leaving little hope for the recovery of the lost funds. In the wake of the ordeal, Steve's trust in Jen waned, prompting him to assume full control over their finances. Stripped of any financial autonomy, Jen found herself relegated to seeking Steve's approval for even the most basic expenses, a restriction she found suffocating and frustrating. As she grappled with the consequences of her actions, Jen turned to Tom for solace, only to be met with a reminder of her own culpability. Bereft of disposable income, she sought employment through senior job listings, eventually finding fulfillment in teaching the elderly how to navigate modern technology. Despite her own struggles, Jen's empathetic approach endeared her to her students, earning her respect for her ability to relate to their challenges and patiently guide them through the intricacies of smartphone usage. Though her circumstances had shifted dramatically, Jen found solace in her newfound role, finding purpose in helping others navigate the digital age. Steve, driven perhaps by his pride, found senior roles unfulfilling and promptly resigned, leaving him without a source of income. Meanwhile, Jen's schedule has become increasingly hectic, often leaving him to tend to household chores as she attends to her commitments. Surprisingly, Steve has discovered a newfound passion for cooking and is honing his skills in the kitchen. The dynamics in Tom's parents' household have shifted dramatically, yet both individuals seem to have found a sense of satisfaction in their new roles. In my own journey, following a successful overseas business trip, I've ascended the career ladder and now serve as the anchor for the evening news. Tom's photography studio is thriving, and together, we've accumulated enough savings to contemplate repurchasing and renovating the family home. We remain grateful to our acquaintance who allowed us to retain ownership of the house despite the distressing ordeal we endured. Ultimately, the situation proved beneficial for Tom's parents. As our son nears adulthood at 17, I've imparted this tale to him as a lesson on the dangers of internet fraud. However, out of respect for his grandparents, I've chosen to keep the aspect of their attempt to sell our house a secret, preserving their dignity.
I'm going to enjoy a trip with my friends using your card. Suddenly, Brian called me. I had noticed he'd been coming home late and chatting with Nicole, acting strange. Was he planning something with her all along? I suspected they teamed up for a scheme, but thankfully, I was prepared. Maybe I should act surprised. Oh, really? Explain. I already knew Brian was leaving for a trip today. It's unbelievable if he's trying to trick me. I have been patient until now, but today I felt the urge to get back at him. It's time to fight back against those annoying siblings. Once today is over, everything will clear up. I hope they're having fun on their trip, unaware that someone in their group is on my side. My name is Pamela Smith, and I'm 33, living with my husband Brian. After high school, I started working at my current company, gained experience, and got certifications. Being valued for certifications and my track record, I got a lead position at 21. Even though I'm younger than Brian, I'm his superior at work. I trained him and 2 others. Brian joined the company a bit later, and despite being close in age, I became his supervisor. We started dating, and our relationship became typical. After moving in together, I noticed Brian's sloppiness. We got engaged, and Brian proposed that I become a stay-at-home wife. He had a dream of me handling the house, and he wanted kids soon. I expressed concerns about finances and not quitting my job even after having kids. I understand the idea of buying a house, but it bothers me that you earn more than me. Still, I want our house. I was thinking of getting one right after our wedding, but that might be tough. Since I already earn more, how about we manage the wedding and the house for now and think about kids later? We can decide what to do about my job then. All right, let's do that. Honestly, I didn't want to quit my job, but I felt like suggesting this. Otherwise, Brian might keep demanding. Before our wedding, we had an engagement party with both families. Brian's sister Nicole was away on a trip, so I met her for the first time at the wedding. She entered the waiting room without knocking, looked me up and down, and said, "So this is who Brian chose. A bit plain compared to his past choices, huh? I'm Pamela. Nice to meet you, Nicole." She waved her hand and left the room, leaving me stunned by her upfront attitude. Turns out, this sister-in-law is quite the character. Later, I greeted my sister-in-law's husband, and he seemed like a decent guy. The ceremony went smoothly, and after touring our new home, Brian and I bought the house we both liked. I thought things would get busy, so I put more energy into my work. On a seemingly ordinary day off, the doorbell suddenly rang. Since I was occupied, Brian answered it. He came back chatting and laughing. It turned out my sister-in-law had dropped by. "Hey there, Pamela. Brian's doing pretty well, huh? Owning such a big house. Good for him. After all, he's my little brother, right? I've been working hard. Make yourself at home, Pamela. Don't we have some snacks or something? My sister's here, so hurry up." I felt something was off with Brian's behavior. He started acting all high and mighty because his sister was here, probably telling her he bought the house himself. I chipped in for the down payment and contributed to paying the mortgage, but Brian really wanted his name on the title. Despite us living together, I thought it didn't matter whose name was on it. However, the way he explained it to his sister bothered me. I decided not to make a scene and held my tongue. "Here's some snacks. Brian works really hard, you know." Why does Pamela sound so bossy? Well, I am Brian's supervisor at work. Oh, did I not mention that? When I started the job, Pamela was already a manager. She began working right after dropping out of high school. It couldn't be helped. If it were me, I'd surpass her in no time. "Wait, you dropped out of high school? You look serious, yet you're less accomplished than me. Is there a problem?" "Not really, but since he didn't graduate, and I'm your sister-in-law, I can ask you for anything, right?" "That's true, Pamela. Whatever my sister says is the final word. If you refuse, I'll kick you out of the house." I struggled to understand what this sibling pair was talking about. What's the point? She can ask me for anything because I don't have a high school diploma. And if I don't listen, I'll be kicked out of the house. What kind of nonsense is this? I gave a polite smile and quickly escaped to the kitchen. From the kitchen, I could hear Brian's voice, and they seemed serious about their earlier conversation. After their talk, my sister-in-law came into the kitchen. "Hey, Pamela, I've got a favor to ask." "What's up?" "I kinda need to borrow a little money, like $5,000, please." "How is that a little money? That's a lot." "What do you need it for anyway? Come on, it's just $5,000. You're a supervisor, right? You must have a good salary." "Oh, right, I needed to cover the remaining renovation costs." "Didn't you just brag about your new condo?" "The other day, Brian told me to hand over some money. He claimed he'd lend it to his sister, Nicole, and said I should ask you." "Why would he decide that without asking me?" "Listen, Pamela, either give me the money, or I'll call the boss right now and tell them you want to quit. Which one do you prefer?" All right, Nicole, I'll lend you the money, but on one condition. We need to draw up a promissory note. Even though we're family, I want it in writing. So when you come to get the money, make sure to bring your ID with a picture, okay?" "Oh, such a hassle, but fine. If you're going to give me the money, I'll be over tomorrow night." So I decided to lend my sister-in-law the money. I had this gut feeling that getting her to sign a promissory note was essential. Even though Nicole grumbled, she did bring everything I asked for the next day. But seriously, I never knew how much Brian was spoiled by his sister until we got married. It's just ridiculous. I bet no matter what I said, it wouldn't have made a difference. Later on, I found out Nicole used the money to buy designer stuff. Once I lent her money, she kept asking for more without any hesitation. Of course, I made her sign a note every single time. In a month, she had borrowed about $12,000 from me. Just when I thought this was becoming too much, I got called into the boss's office. Turns out, they wanted to promote me from a supervisor to a manager. I was over the moon, excited to share the good news with Brian, who had taken the day off. "I'm home, Brian. Guess what?" "Welcome back, Pamela. You seem really excited. What happened today?" "My boss called me in, and guess what? He asked me if I wanted to be the department manager. My goal has always been to become the head manager, so I'm super excited that I'm getting closer to it." "Huh. Wait. What, Pamela? You're getting promoted? I don't get it. Did you accept the offer?" "Well, yeah, I've told you about my goal before, right?" "Hold on, you should have asked for my permission before making such a decision. Plus, I've told you I wanted you to be a stay-at-home wife, haven't I? How come you're getting promoted and I'm still stuck at the same position? Doesn't that seem odd?" "That's not my fault. I've made it clear that I don't want to quit my job. Why you can't get promoted is beyond me." Shortly after, Brian made a call, and I assumed it was to his older sister. Sure enough, a few minutes later, his sister arrived. "Hey, I heard you stole Brian's promotion opportunity. What's the big idea?" "No, I didn't steal anything. At our company, promotions are based on performance." "So you're saying Brian's incompetent at his job? How dare you look down on him? As his wife, this is ridiculous. Let's go grab some barbecue on her dime." They rummaged through my purse and took my bank card. I tried to resist, but they were 2 against 1, and I ended up being restrained. The two of them left, laughing, and tears welled up in my eyes. I shouldn't have married such a man. It's too late for regrets. I need to find a good divorce lawyer. That night, Brian didn't come home. The next day, when I went to work, Brian had already arrived and came up to me with a smug look, saying, "Yesterday was a blast. Eating on someone else's dime is the best. Thanks for the treat." When he handed me the receipt, I saw he'd been to an upscale barbecue restaurant, and the bill was $1,200. There were also receipts from luxurious bars that totaled an unbelievable $6,000. I wanted to snap back, but more and more employees were coming in, so I held my tongue. On my way home, I checked how much was withdrawn from the bank, and to my shock, it was $8,000. I confronted him when I got back. "Brian, what were you thinking, taking out $8,000 for fancy barbecue and luxurious bars?" "It's my money, and it's what I had saved from my single days. I just got home, and you're nagging me about money from your single days. Don't know, don't care, can't do anything about it now since I've already spent it." He said that and ran into the bathroom. That's it. I'm definitely going to divorce him. I went to see a lawyer over the weekend. Several weeks have passed since then, and the preparations for the divorce are progressing steadily. Ever since that incident, Brian has been coming home late, and he leaves the house in a hurry on his days off. I was getting suspicious and thought about hiring a private investigator when I got a call from Kevin, my sister-in-law Nicole's husband. "Hello, is this Pamela's number?" "Yes, Kevin, it's rare to hear from you." "Yeah, it's been a while. Anyway, is my wife there, Nicole?" "No, she's not here." "I see. She's been coming home late and leaving without telling me. On weekends, she said she was at Brian's place when I asked her yesterday." "Oh, I see. Brian's been acting the same way. Maybe they're both going somewhere together. It's none of my business anymore, so I don't really care. Oh, and Kevin, I had something to tell you as well. Can you hear me out? None of your business anymore." "What do you mean?" "All right, go ahead." I told him everything that happened about the money I lent to my sister-in-law and everything else. Upon hearing this, Kevin sighed and said, "Is that so? I'm sorry about my wife. To be honest, I've been at my breaking point and considered getting a divorce, but I just couldn't take action." "Why not use the evidence I've gathered, Kevin? You should get a divorce too. It's not fair for you to be in this situation. Let's give those selfish siblings who spend money recklessly a taste of their own medicine. Yeah, let's work together on this. Oh, by the way, I think Nicole and the others might be planning a trip." He mentioned that she had urged him to take a long vacation, and there were travel brochures on Pamela's vanity. Curious, I decided to look inside the shelf that Brian had always told me not to touch. Sure enough, I found travel brochures and club cards. That's when it clicked for me. Kevin, I think they might really be planning a trip. I found some brochures. I've got an idea. As I explained the plan, Kevin laughed and agreed to go along with it. We decided to coordinate further via text and ended the call. I also sent him some potential evidence that could be beneficial for the divorce and meticulously planned our next steps. 2 weeks later, early one morning, Brian left the house. I knew about it since Kevin had informed me the day before. A few hours later, Brian called. I'm gonna have a blast on your card with my sis and friends. He had been coming home late and sneakily making calls with Nicole. I had sensed something was off. I suspected they were up to something. Good thing I had prepared. Maybe I should act surprised. Mine? What? What do you mean? Explain. Seriously, you didn't notice. We planned this trip ages ago. Kevin was just our backup plan in case something happened. We felt you've been getting too arrogant lately and talked about teaching you a lesson. Got it? Now you can't stand up to us anymore. I don't have to tolerate this any longer. I've been patient for so long. A little payback isn't too much to ask for. I don't feel anything anymore, not even a shred of emotion. Brian, what did you say earlier? I told you about your debit card, right? Huh? I have my card in my wallet, though. What? What are you talking about? Because here it is. Wait, what the heck is this? You just noticed? Slow on the uptake, huh? Didn't you take my old gym membership card from the fitness club I used to go to? It's the same color and same stiffness. Oh my God, it does say fitness club. But I swear when I checked it, it was definitely a debit card. Are you sure you didn't just mix them up? Hey, I heard everything because you're on speaker. What's going on? Brian brought a fitness membership card. I'm sure I saw my debit card. Ah, so it was a scheme by Nicole and Brian, huh? I'm so disappointed. Actually, last night I switched the debit card with the membership card. Seems like you didn't check this morning and just went with it. What? Dude, what the heck are you playing at? No, I should be the one asking that, Brian. Tough break, huh? Don't get too cocky just because you're my stepsister. Got it? You'll remember this when we get back. I've got gifts waiting for both of you when you come back. You trying to bribe us? I won't accept anything but cash. Well, we'll see about that. Look forward to it. That's beside the point. What should we do now? Oh, Pamela, can you send me some money? I hung up the phone. I didn't need to hear any more. Then I got a message from Brian saying, you better send it, okay? Or worst case scenario, we still have Kevin here, you know. I simply replied with, is that so? And went back to sleep. I was woken up by the ring of my phone in the afternoon. Looking at the screen, there were an incredible number of missed calls and messages. First, I called my brother-in-law and then answered Brian's call. Hey, finally send the money ASAP, please. It's so cold. I think I'm gonna freeze. The reason they're cold is because they're in Alaska. Considering it's February, you can imagine it must be freezing if Brian and his group are saying they're cold. Seems like my plan worked. Really? You said Kevin would help, right? Or is he not there? What do you know something? Anyway, it's freezing and Kevin's not here. Should I clue you in? Since you and Nicole teamed up, Kevin and I did too. Simple, right? Now do you get why I entertained you guys for so long on that first call? To buy time, and Kevin, he hopped on another plane and is coming back here. I hung up once I got word he boarded the plane. Got it? What's your deal with my husband, huh? Don't tell me you're wrong. We teamed up to get back at you. Now find your own way back. See you. And with that, I hung up. Kevin should be arriving here soon. I decided to call in my lawyer. We had our final meeting regarding the divorce before Brian and the others would return. Why did I gather everyone here? I was sure Brian and the group would confront me. A few hours later, as soon as Brian and his group returned, they started yelling. Pamela? Hey, what the hell? What were you thinking? Be prepared to move out, okay? Kevin's with you, isn't he? Why did you even come back first? Unbelievable. You okay with me leaving? You apologize. Shut it. Sit down. Usually calm, Kevin's shouting stunned Brian and his companion, making them sit down right away. The lawyer promptly handed out his business cards to both of them. Both looked dumbfounded as they stared at the cards. Well, here's a gift from us. Kevin and I handed them a stack of papers. As they read through them, their faces turned pale. Wait a minute. This mentions property division. You're not saying it's about divorce, are you? It's written on mine too. It's a divorce. What did I do? Divorce has got to be a joke, right? Yeah, right. Kevin, let's head home. I'll go first. I've been recording your daily outbursts. After some time, even the call you made from your vacation, Brian, you don't even know what you did. I can't continue like this with you. Hold on, are you sure? I said it, didn't I? I'm demanding half of the down payment from when we bought the house, the rest of the mortgage, and the repayment of the savings you spent from when I was single. Nickel, you spent the money you borrowed from me, and also withdrew from my savings with Brian, right? You're going to repay that. No, wait, Brian. Didn't you buy this house? And I never borrowed or used any of it. That's a false accusation, Nicole. Please go through everything. There's a promissory note in there for the amount you've borrowed so far. No way, I don't know anything about this. If there's no proof, I'll do this with this scrap of paper. And me too, hand over that recorder. Brian stomped on the recorder. Nickel tore the paper into pieces and threw it away. And then the two of them looked at us with smug expressions. Look here. First of all, Brian, even if you do that, there's still data on the computer. And Nickel, that wasn't the original document. What the hell are you two doing? Oops, indeed. You two don't think things through. Nickel, I have a claim against you too, spending all the savings and such, and say hi to that guy you got close to at the bar. Both of them were shamelessly crying on the spot. The amount I billed Brian was a total of $115,000, $5,000 for emotional damages, $100,000 for the down payment on the house, and $10,000 for miscellaneous expenses. In addition, there's an upcoming loan repayment of $2,000. For the bill from me to Nicole, it amounted to $31,000, $8,000 for miscellaneous expenses, and $23,000 for a loan for which she signed a promissory note. As for the amount billed from Kevin to Nicole, since she had been intentionally distressing him and spending money, it came to $120,000, $30,000 for emotional damages, and $90,000 for miscellaneous expenses, all without any division of assets like condos. I thought the two of them might sue since they weren't the sharpest tools in the shed, but thanks to our attorney who wrote at the end of the paperwork, if you sue, you're gonna lose for sure. No one's gonna represent you. It'll just cost you more. Work hard on your repayments. We settled it without going to court. I grabbed my packed belongings and left the house. Somehow, the word got out at my office, and he was transferred to another branch. Only a few weeks had passed when I got a message from Brian. Pamela, I want to see you. I never thought life without you would be this lonely. Can we give it another shot? You can work as much as you want. It's not going to happen. Goodbye, Pamela. It's Nickel. I think you should reconsider things with my brother. Why don't we live together? Maybe there's been some misunderstanding between us. I believe things will be better. Nickel, it's not gonna happen. I'm sorry. Goodbye. They begged, but I ignored them and blocked their contacts. It seems Kevin got a similar call, but turned it down and blocked them too. Sometime later, when I passed by my old house in a taxi, I saw it was already up for sale. Since the repayment was done in one go, and I'd blocked all communications, I have no idea how they're doing now. As for me, I moved out and bought a condo. Work's been going well, and my boss recently told me that I've been promoted to regional director, a position I've always aimed for. I've also been out to eat with Kevin a few times. He's a bit older, but we click, and our conversations flow easily. Things feel just right now between us, and we think alike. Life's been good since the divorce. I'm glad I got divorced. What happened between me and Kevin after that is a story for another time.
Guess what? I sold my house, my brother-in-law Kevin said. My husband and I were really surprised, and we didn't know what to say. But the most surprised person was my mother-in-law. She looked really upset and asked, "Why? Weren't you supposed to come get me?" Kevin tried to calm her down and started to explain. "I'm Sandra. I work from home with my husband Robert. We love our peaceful workplace where we can take breaks whenever we need," I explained. Then my mother-in-law moved in with us. We were doing fine financially, so we didn't mind. "But why don't you both go out to work?" My mother-in-law would look at us with disapproval as she asked this. It made me feel tired, like we were going through the same thing all over again. The first time she questioned us like this, we explained that we were working from home. "But are you actually working?" "I've told Robert the same thing. Are you paying attention? When will you two get serious about work? Aren't you thinking about your future?" My mother-in-law couldn't understand our job. "Oh, I'm so worried. I wonder if I made a mistake coming to this house. Maybe I should have gone to Kevin's house." She would often sigh and say this. The Kevin she mentioned is Robert's brother. He married a wealthy woman named Carol, and it seems like he's living off her money now. My mother-in-law didn't know about this. Kevin asked us not to tell her. My goodness, Kevin's house isn't small like ours. It's huge, like a castle from another country. Well, I'm thinking of moving to Kevin's house eventually, which will be my new home. My mother-in-law would often say, hoping Kevin would come to take her there. But we knew deep down that Kevin and his wife would never come to get her. You see, Robert once suggested to his brother that their mother could live with him. But Kevin didn't want to live with her. So we ended up living together even though we were criticized for working remotely and called unemployed. We just accepted that's how she is. But then something happened that made it impossible for us to keep putting up with it. Out of nowhere, we got a call from Kevin. "He's coming over this weekend," he said abruptly, then hung up before we could say anything. What do we do now? That guy hasn't changed at all. Robert and I were puzzled. And hearing our talk, my mother-in-law leaned in, looking excited. "He's coming to take me. Please help me get ready to move," she said, pulling Robert towards her room. "Mom, Kevin isn't coming to take you. He probably called for some other reason," Robert said, worried. "But he didn't mention anything about picking you up when he called, did he?" I added. "I'm so tired of this house. You probably want to turn me into a housekeeper, but that's not happening," my mother-in-law replied with a scoff. We couldn't understand why she was thinking like that. Since she came to stay with us, she pretty much did whatever she pleased, didn't help with any chores, and relied on the money we gave her. Well, we weren't going to force her to stay, so we packed her bags as she asked and waited for Kevin to arrive. During the weekend, my brother-in-law and his wife showed up at our place. As soon as they walked in, they had these suspiciously friendly expressions on their faces. I had a bad feeling about it. Just then, my mother-in-law came out, looking excited. "You're finally here. Let me tell you, Sandra is not good at doing housework at all. So I have to do them, and Robert completely ignores me. Isn't that terrible?" she said, acting like she was the victim. Then brushed past Robert and welcomed her brother into our home. "You guys don't mistreat Mom. There's no way we're doing that. We're giving her an allowance, and she's eating whatever she likes. Plus, Sandra is handling the house chores," Robert said, looking conflicted, but his brother seemed suspicious. Robert has always been a bit clueless, probably treating Mom badly without even realizing. And it seems Sandra isn't the considerate type. "That's right. Kevin really understands me," she said. Hearing this conversation, Robert and I couldn't help but frown. Despite this, we decided to entertain our guests and led the couple to the living room. We all sat around the living room table, with Robert and me on one side and the couple on the other. "Now, why are you just sitting there? Serve the tea," my mother-in-law demanded. "Huh? I thought you were going to make the tea, mother-in-law. What's this about making an old woman work? See, Kevin, Sandra is like this," she said, even pretending to cry. I was so stunned by her behavior that I couldn't even respond. Once I served the tea, the mood became serious. The truth is, we sold our house. Robert and I were surprised and shocked by Kevin's words. But the one who was most shocked was my mother-in-law. "Why? Why would you do something like that? Didn't you come to pick me up?" she asked, flustered, confronting Kevin. He tried to calm her down, saying, "Take it easy," and then began to explain. "We've been in debt, and even though we could pay it off by selling the house, we're broke and have nowhere to live, so we came here to see if we could stay." What debt? I tried to start a business, but it didn't work out. These things happen, Kevin said with a laugh. Robert and I sighed in frustration. We only need to stay until we find a new house. Please, we have no one else to turn to, the couple pleaded, bowing their heads together. I think our expressions must have been mixed, but if they had nowhere else to go, we felt obliged to help. We agreed to let them stay temporarily in our house. However, we made it clear that they had to find their own place within a month. Okay, Kevin said, still laughing, and went to prepare for their move. After they left, my mother-in-law sat quietly, looking lost in thought. Robert and I assumed she was still processing everything. The next day, the couple's belongings arrived promptly. This much. Where are we going to put it all? This is going to be tricky. We might have to sell some things or rent a storage unit, my mother-in-law said as we discussed what to do with Kevin's belongings. Then, out of nowhere, she dropped a bombshell on us. I've been thinking, wouldn't we be more secure in the future if Kevin stays here, so you freeloaders can leave, can't you? My mother-in-law's sudden statement left my husband and me shocked. If you insist, I can tolerate Robert staying, but I don't need a wife who can't do anything. Get a divorce then, Sandra's space can be used for all these packages, my mother-in-law eagerly demanded, looking at my husband for approval. What are you talking about? He reacted, as he usually did, completely surprised. Then my brother-in-law and his wife arrived. My mother-in-law greeted them happily, but I was still shaken by her earlier words. My husband decided to ignore the situation for the moment and asked his brother to deal with the packages. There were more than I expected. Try to reduce the number, rent a storage unit, or sell some if necessary, my husband said. His brother glared at him and said, "What are you talking about? These packages are important. How could I sell them? And what if they get stolen from a locker? What if they get damaged? Are you going to take responsibility, bro?" My husband shook his head at his brother's selfish behavior. This is our house, It's only fair that you endure some inconvenience, right? If you don't like it, find a place to live quickly and leave. But then my mother-in-law shouted, "What are you talking about? Didn't I just say if you two are not happy with Kevin and the rest, you can leave? You're basically freeloaders. You're not needed in this house. Kevin is trying to start a business and all you two do is loaf around the house, doing so-called remote work. You're a nuisance." It was like my mother-in-law was acting as if it were her own house. My husband and I exchanged looks in disbelief. My brother-in-law and his wife were surprised at my mother-in-law's words, but then they started to smirk. "That might not be a bad idea, Mom. It sounds good. It's a hassle to find a new place, so we could stay here. So why don't you sell this house to us, Carol?" My brother-in-law said, "I feel uneasy with you two around, so it would be better if you sold this place to us. And it seems like our mother-in-law agrees with us, so sell this place to us." My husband and I were stunned by their words. "What nonsense are you?" my husband started, but was cut off by my mother-in-law, who smirked. "See, both Kevin and Carol are saying the same thing. So what will you do, Robert? If you're going to divorce, you can stay here." My mother-in-law glared at me triumphantly. I prepared myself to respond, but my husband spoke up first. "Why you get to say whatever you want? Why should Sandra have to leave?" My husband was visibly angry, his voice raised. "Don't raise your voice like that. It's better without a burden around, right?" My mother-in-law retorted. But my husband responded with frustration, "You don't understand anything. This is Sandra's house." At my husband's words, my mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and his wife gasped. My husband continued, adding to the tension. "This is the house that Sandra bought for our life together." What are you saying?" "There's no rule saying only the husband can buy the house. Besides, Sandra covers all of Mom's allowance and living expenses. Sandra said she'd take on that responsibility because your pension is minimal, and it would be hard for you to have financial freedom with just that." Robert glared intensely at his mother. Despite this, my mother-in-law seemed incredulous, looking at me and snickering in disbelief. "Unbelievable. Sandra just sits on the computer all day. She doesn't even do housework properly. Wasn't my allowance coming out of my pension? Otherwise, there's no way Sandra could afford to give me $500 a month. Moreover, my mother-in-law continued, Sandra is the one managing my pension, isn't she? You might have told Robert otherwise, but I'm sure you're dipping into my pension." She puffed up her chest and glared at me. I glared back, refusing to back down. It's true that I've succeeded as a business owner. You're lying. Stop spreading lies about my wife. You should divorce this lying wife already. You can live here with me, Kevin, and Carol. Besides, there's no proof that Sandra isn't earning money. Here it is. With that, I pulled out my paycheck and showed it to her. The sight of it left my mother-in-law, Kevin, and his wife stunned. Since Mom moved in, we haven't used any of her pension. If Mom ever wanted to leave, Sandra has been managing it so she could live independently. But instead, Mom, you've been bossing Sandra around, interfering with her work. You're the problem. If you don't like Sandra, you should leave right now. I don't believe any of this, my mother-in-law retorted, refusing to listen to anything we said. Afterward, Robert and I sighed in disbelief, cutting her off. Well, if that's how you feel, we'll pack our things and move to a new house. You guys will be stuck with a mortgage. But if that's okay with you, don't come crying to us for help. If you insist, mother-in-law will leave even with a pension. Maintaining your lifestyle will be challenging, but I guess that can't be helped, can it? At our words, my mother-in-law turned beet red and yelled at us to leave. Wait, you can't be serious. We don't have to do that, do we? Kevin and his wife tried to intervene, but my mother-in-law gave us a fierce look and said, "Don't you dare talk back, Kevin. You're going to be a CEO, aren't you? I don't mind you using my pension, so just start a company and show us how successful you can become. I'll show you what happens when you defy us." Her words were filled with intensity. Hearing this, we decided it was best to no longer be involved with her or Kevin's family and left the house. Of course, the mortgage on the house remained, but we changed the ownership to Kevin's name. Some time had passed since then. While there was still some lingering dissatisfaction from that incident, being freed from my mother-in-law's sarcasm, we were able to return to our normal routine. While we were working from home like usual in our new apartment, my mother-in-law called my husband, Kevin, crying. She said Kevin took her pension money and disappeared a week ago. She and Carol, Kevin's sister, were left alone in the house and needed help. My mother-in-law was too upset to talk, so she passed the phone to Carol. Carol explained that since Kevin's failed business and selling the family home, their parents had cut ties with them. They hadn't been able to reach their parents since then. My husband sighed and said, "I knew it. He told them not to involve us because we had warned them before leaving. He said they could report Kevin missing to the police, but that we wouldn't help them." After hanging up, I was shocked by my husband's reaction, but he believed they deserved what happened, and I ended up agreeing with him. They kept calling my husband's phone numerous times. Whenever he reluctantly answered, Carol would cry about not knowing how to report Kevin missing. We were surprised she didn't know what to do and advised her to call the police. However, despite their efforts, they couldn't locate Kevin. Just when we thought Kevin might remain missing, we heard the news that he had been arrested for robbing a bank in another state. Apparently, he did it to pay off his debts. This wasn't his first time committing such a crime, and it seemed he was likely facing a significant jail sentence. Carol is stuck living with my mother-in-law in their old house because she can't go back to her parents' home. She's unsure if she'll divorce Kevin, but that's not her priority right now. She's working with a temp agency, struggling with her first job, but somehow managing to get by each day. My mother-in-law is in a tough spot too. Kevin took all her pension, and now she's left to repay his debts. She started working part-time to make ends meet. While my husband and I feel bad for them, we decided not to help and cut off contact. They're experiencing the tough realities of life my mother-in-law often talked about. Despite the challenges since my mother-in-law moved in, my husband and I are relieved to have returned to our peaceful routine.